Hello guys, greetings and welcome to the continuation of our session for AWS Solution Architect Associate level. Today we are going to be continuing with our training, and we are going to be looking at our agenda for today. What does our agenda for today tells us? We are going to be, last week, was it last week? Yeah, I think it was last week. We talked about IAM policies, IAM groups, IAM custom policies, and IAM password policies. I believe you are already versed with all these topics, and I believe you already have practiced them and you know them very well, because we are going to be using them most often. Now, today we are going to be talking mostly about CLI. As I did promise, we will be talking about CLI. What is CLI? Command line interface. Okay, and before we talk about CLI, there is one important thing I would really want us to discuss, which is multi-factor authentication. All right, I would love that we should discuss multi-factor authentication, because it is a layer of security and it is always mandated in industries. Everywhere you go, you are always mandated to use multi-factor authentication. So I would like that we should talk about multi-factor authentication. But before we talk about multi-factor authentication, I want to say this. For your root account, please be careful with multi-factor authentication. I know in places like Africa, losing a device is very common. If you set your multi-factor authentication to an app in your device, and you lose that device, you cannot more gain access to your AWS account. If that account was a root account, the only thing you are going to do is you are going to contact AWS. So for root accounts, I will advise you to be very careful when initiating multi-factor authentication. But for your IAM user accounts that you all have, you can make your multi-factor authentication. Generally, it is for teaching purposes. You do not have any important data running in this account, so we are just showing you, as when you get into a company, they'll tell you that you should activate your multi-factor authentication, and if they tell you that you should activate multi-factor authentication, you should know what exactly to do. All right, so let's get into our AWS account. So when you get into your AWS account, in order to activate your multi-factor authentication, what you need to do is you go to your account and you click on security credentials. When you click on security credentials, you are going to be carried to your security environment. Okay, now in your security environment, you will see a multi-factor authentication there. Okay, you see multi-factor authentication. Then what you need to do here is that you need to assign a multi-factor authentication. When you assign a multi-factor authentication, they will ask you, now when you click on assign multi-factor authentication, they will ask you, what is the device? I can say my device is my Android phone. Right, that is my device, and I am going to use an authentication app. Okay, I'm going to be using an app that is installed in my phone. You can also use a security key, you can also use a token, but we are going for an app in our phone. And then we are going to go to next. Now in next, when we click on next, now we'll need to download the application that we want to authenticate in our phones. Okay, we need to download the application in our phone. For me, I use Microsoft Authenticator. Okay, there are so many different types of applications that can help you, but if you go to App Store, you will see Microsoft Authenticator. You can download Microsoft Authenticator in Play Store and you install in your phone. When you install Microsoft Authenticator, then you open it. Okay, when you open Microsoft Authenticator, it is going to look like this. This is how it will look like. All right, you have your authenticator looks like this. So the very first thing is you are going to scan. You're going to click on this plus here. When you click on this plus here, then there will be an option to scan this code. There will be an option to scan this code that is here like this. Okay, when you click on this plus here, an option will come out, because when you download Microsoft Authenticator, it will come out as an app in your phone. You open the phone. When you open the phone, then you are going to see this plus here. When you open the app, please, you're going to see this plus here. Then you click on this plus. That means you want to add an account to your authenticator. Now when you click on this plus, a QR scanner will come out, whether you asking you if you want to scan. Okay, you click on yes, you want to scan. When you click on yes, you want to scan, then now you can come over here and then you scan, show QR code, and then you scan. Let me go to my authenticator. So I am actually opening my Microsoft Authenticator now, and I am creating a personal account, and I am clicking on scan a code. So I'm clicking now here, show QR code, and then I am scanning. Okay, it's scanned successfully, and then now when it's scanned, you will see it appear. When it's scanned successfully, another account will appear below here. Okay, that is a new account that you have just scanned. Now the next thing is you click on that account that has just appeared. When you click on that account, you will see a number appear. There is a 6-digit number that will appear, and after 30 minutes that number will, after 30 seconds that number will change. So they are telling you fill in 2 consecutive codes from your account. So my first number is 210085, and then I'll wait for some time. After some time the number will change again and a new number will come up. When the new number comes up, my new number is 860660, and then I say add. You see my device have been added. Okay, right now if I want to log into this account, I must need to authenticate through my phone. Let's try and see. Let me sign out. So I'm trying to log back in. Now you see they are asking me for my multi-factor authenticator code. I'll go now to my phone, and then I will look, a number is displayed in my phone. I will put the number that is presently displayed in my phone, 247314, and then before I'm able to log in. So that is multi-factor authenticator for you. All right, you will always need to activate multi-factor authenticator in your account, because without it, most security practices or security demands that you should always have multi-factor authentication in your account. In all your AWS account, there should be multi-factor authentication. So that is multi-factor authenticator for you, right? So in all the various, generally in your Facebook account, in your LinkedIn account, in your social media account, it is always better to use multi-factor authentication, right? And at least Facebook and LinkedIn and the rest, they provide a possibility for you to use it with your email, so you should do that. It is a layer of security that is very, very important. Okay, next we want to look at CLI. So what is CLI? Command line interface. All right, with command line interface, it is all about command line, just as it is saying. That means as we come here, as we come to AWS, when we come to AWS and we click on EC2 and we are creating EC2 instances using the console, you create an EC2 instances, or you can create an S3 bucket using the console. That is the same thing that you can do in your command line. That means you can just come to open a command line, like for instance, I can just open maybe a git bash command line. If I open a git bash cmd, or even a Windows cmd or whatsoever, I can just right here type commands and create my EC2 instance directly from here, while I type in commands here and I create my EC2 instances directly from here without actually going to the console. Okay, so in command line, it is possible for me to write my code here and EC2 instance be created behind in the console. But how can that work? How should that work? All right, for that to be able to work in Windows, like I say here, we are going to look at it in Windows before we look at it in Linux. Okay, for Windows, in Windows you have to install an application. For command line interface in Windows, you have to install an application. And what is the name for the application? AWS configure. Now, AWS CLI, not AWS configure, please. The name for the application is AWS CLI. So let's go and search for, you can just go online and you can search for AWS CLI. Just go online and let's search for, you go to Google, then we search for AWS CLI. AWS CLI download, we'll get it here, download or update the latest version of CLI. Okay, here you download your AWS CLI from AWS. So this is for Linux, this is for Mac, and this is for Windows. We are downloading it for Windows. Okay, so this is the download and run AWS CLI installer for Windows 64-bit. I'm taking this one, so it will be downloading. Yes, so this is it being downloaded. It is being downloaded in programs. Okay, and download it. So for you to be able to have access to AWS through the CLI, you need to download AWS CLI. You need to download it. Is an application, you need to download it. Okay, so I open my folder and you install the application like any other application. It is any other application anyway. It is any other application. So I had the application at first. This is the other one that I've downloaded. But if I'm looking at it, the one I had was 38 point something megabyte and this one is 39. Then there's an update. So if I just run double click to install, so I am going to install my AWS CLI on my machine, right? So it is taking setup and verifying updates. It might take some time, please, so you give it be patient. All right, it has finally I waited for some time. It has finally installed, so we go to next and we accept and we go to next. It's just about clicking next and then you install. So we are installing. It's just like installing any normal application. There is nothing new in it. So after the installation is completed, we click finish. So our AWS CLI has been installed in our computer. So what you do is you install AWS CLI in your computer. Okay, so after CLI has been installed in your computer, the next thing you do is you come to your command line interface of your choice. You can go to your Windows command line interface or anyone, and then you type AWS configure. Mark you, this is an interview question. They ask you what command do you type in order to set your AWS CLI. The command is called AWS configure. Don't forget this command, AWS configure. Okay, when I type AWS configure, if I type AWS configure when I have not installed my CLI, nothing would happen. Okay, my machine will not recognize this command. But now, after I have installed my CLI, if I type AWS configure and I press enter, see what happens. Now they are going to ask me for something. Let's see what they are going to ask me first of all. So they ask me for AWS access key ID. That's what they are asking me. What is your AWS access key ID? Where should I get this AWS access key ID? What is an AWS access key ID and where should I get it from? Okay, that's what we need to know. What is an AWS access key ID and where should I get it from? Actually, when you come to your account, here is my account. You go to the name of your account, you come down to security. When you come down to security, then you go to access keys, and then you can come and say create access key. All right, in root account, they highly do not want you to create access keys. That's why this thing is dancing like this. It's dancing like this because I'm using the root account, and they are telling you that it is not recommended for you to use root access keys because everything here is highly administrative. I say yes, I know what I want to do. I click on create access key. My access key has been created. Okay, now as my access key has been created, I copy my access key. Don't worry, I'm not going to keep this. I'm going to delete this access key immediately I finish, so nobody can have access to the account. I copy my access key. There are two keys, right? The first one is, this one is secret access key. The first one is actually access key, and then the second one is secret access key. Let me show you the way you put it. This one is, first one is access key. This is your access key, and then the second one is secret access key. So these are the two keys that they need. Okay, so if we come back now to AWS configure, you see they're asking for AWS access key ID first. So in order for me to put them the access key ID that they are asking, this is the access key. Give them the access key. They are asking now for AWS secret access key. That is the second one. I copy it. I provide it. Now they'll ask me, what is your default region? I'll come back to my account. I'll look at where my region is. You can put wherever your region is, please, wherever your region is, but I would like to set it in North Virginia. So when you see North Virginia, what will you see there? US East 1. That is my default region. So my default region is US East 1. So I come down here, US East 1. And they'll ask me that what is the output format of your logs. Logs will be generated while this account is running. What is the output format? I want text. And then my AWS CLI is configured in this machine. So right now I can run commands in this machine, and the resources can be created in AWS. It's as simple as that. So you run commands here and the results are created in AWS. Now let us when you want to see objects in Linux, what command do you run? If you want to see objects in Linux, remember you run the command ls, right? And then you will see objects. So here ls is not recognized in Windows, but when I will use Linux AWS CLI, I will be able to see objects in AWS control panel. So let me come to my here. If I run AWS S3 ls, okay, if I run AWS S3 ls, do we have buckets? This is AWS S3 bucket. Can I see them? Do we have buckets in AWS S3? We will see if we have the buckets, right? Now when I run AWS S3 ls, you see I am having a bucket here. There is a bucket here, and if I go to my AWS account and I check whether there is actually a bucket in this account, let's see if there is a bucket. Of course there is a bucket. This is the name of the bucket, and when I come here I also see a bucket here. Okay, can I create a bucket from here? Yes, I can create a bucket from here. There is a command that can help me create a bucket. This is a command, AWS S3 make bucket S3, and then I put the bucket name here. So if I copy this command like this, if I copy this command and I paste here, and I give my bucket name here, CLI bucket. Okay, so AWS S3 make bucket S3 -- and then you give your bucket name. Let's see if we are able to create this bucket. You see our bucket has been created. Okay, now if we go to our console and we refresh, we'll see our bucket has been created. This is our CLI bucket that has been created. We created this bucket not from our AWS console but from our command line interface. Okay, now this bucket that has been created, I know so many questions that are in your mind. Can we give it access? Can we do that? Can we do that? Yeah, it is created originally with public access. Okay, this bucket is created originally with public access. All right, now this is for teaching purposes, but generally in my years of experience in the industry, I have not seen somebody who is actually creating resources from the command line. I'll tell you what the command line is used for. I've not seen somebody who actually is creating resources from the command line. It is difficult. Actually, the command line is used because Terraform or CloudFormation works with the command line. Okay, so generally, in order to link our Terraform to our AWS account, this is the same process that we go through, so that Terraform in our computer can be able to link directly to AWS. So what I have seen in the industry is that we use the CLI just for the sake of infrastructure as code. It is difficult for you to see somebody who is busy, whose job is busy creating resources from the command line. It's difficult, because if I show you the code to create an EC2 instance from the command line, you will be asking yourself that, how can you ever cram that code? Can you ever cram all those codes and all the like? But yes, it can be sometimes easier for you if you have already have the code and you want to create the same type of EC2 instances. You just copy the code and you paste, and the EC2 instance is created, rather than going and clicking things from there. But that is why infrastructure as code is good for you. When we come to Terraform, you will see how Terraform takes over the creation of instances using code more intelligently and more better. Okay, so I will not advise you to go cramming the various codes on how to create a particular resource. I will not be advising you for that. I'll just simply tell you that master your Terraform code. When we come to Terraform, master instead the various codes in Terraform on how to create those resources. Okay, so what you should retain here is you can actually link your command line to your AWS account. And how should you do that? You need two things. You need your access key. Actually, first of all, before you do that, you need to install, if it is your Windows machine, you need to install AWS Configure, and then you go to your account, you generate your access key, and you generate your secret access key, and then you put your default AWS region, and then you put your output. That is it. You are connected to your account. Okay, once you are connected to your account, now you can now, after you have installed Terraform, you can now run Terraform code, and the code will respond to your AWS account. Okay, so that is the take home here, is just learn how to connect to your account using command line interface. That is just all I want to make you know. All right, so that is connecting to AWS using command line interface for Windows. All right, now how do you think it will be different for Linux? How do you think it will be different for Linux? So let's go create a computer. Let's create an EC2 instance and see how we can use CLI in order to access our AWS. So this is our AWS instance created. We've just logged into our instance. So let's move over to super user, and then now, depending on your flavor of Linux on AWS, if you are using AWS Linux, CLI will already be installed there. If you are using Ubuntu, you have to install Ubuntu. Okay, in order to know how to install, I think you just first of all run AWS Configure. If it is not there, they will tell you how to install it. So AWS Configure is not there, they'll tell you that you can install using apt install AWS CLI. So we install to apt install AWS CLI. Okay, let us update our repository. Apt update. Now that our repository is updated, let us install AWS CLI. Our CLI is installed, so we clear it. Now we can run AWS configure, and now they are asking us for AWS access key ID. The same thing, you can come, you put your access key ID, and they will ask for AWS secret access key. Copy your secret access key, and you paste, and then they ask you for region. Default region is US East 1, that's not Virginia, and the text format is, the output format is text, and we are there. Okay, when I run now AWS S3 LS, I see my 2 buckets are there, so my command line is working in my Linux system. Okay, in my Linux operating system, my command line is working very well. All right, so this is how you can connect, you can install AWS CLI in your command line. As I said, the real importance of this CLI is going to be with the use of Terraform. Okay, because it is difficult for you to see anybody who says I am experienced with creating my resources using command line. I mean, they don't even, it is not a requirement in any job. I have never seen it as a requirement in any job interview. So you do not kill your head. What they will ask you is if you know Terraform. Terraform is a key. They will not ask you whether you can create resources using CLI. Okay, Terraform is the key. Terraform is the goal, not CLI. So we are just teaching you how to connect using CLI, not how to be creating resources using CLI. Take care of that, please. Okay, so where are we? So we have finished with multi-factor authentication, we are finished with CLI, and then we are looking now with CLI for IAM user. Okay, presently we have created CLI for with our accounts. I've been using the root account here. I've been using the root account, but whether you can do it with your IAM account differs on how you are going to generate your access keys with your IAM account. Okay, so let's come over to this is, I have logged in here as an IAM user with the DevOps account that you people are having, with the DevOps account that you all are having. Okay, here I will be asked to generate my access key. The process of generating my access key is actually different. So I'll go to DevOps, create security credentials. So down here I'm going to come down to access keys. All right, I say create access key. Here, what type of access key do I want to create? I want to create for my command line interface. When you want to create your access key for a third-party service like Terraform, you will take this one. Okay, you want to create access key for a third-party service like Terraform, you will take this one. But I want it for command line interface, and then I go to I accept, and then I go to next, and then I give my default value CLI access keys. I go to create access keys. My access keys are created. Done. Now when your access keys are created, this is it here. You copy it from here. You do not click done. If you click done, the access keys are going to disappear. So you first of all copy it from here and keep it somewhere very safe. I copy. The first one I'm copying is access key. Copy it. Here is the access key. And then the second one I'm copying is secret access key. I copy it. So these are my two keys. Now I can click on done. Right, confirm. Okay, look, when I come down to my access keys, you see what I have here is my access key. Do you see the secret access key? You do not see the secret access key. You can never see the secret access key. So make sure you copy your secret access key and keep before you click on done. All right, so from here the steps are the same. You copy, you take your access keys, and you run AWS configure, and you connect them, and everything works the same for you. All right, and then when you finish practicing, you always make sure that you deactivate and delete your access keys, because you don't keep those access keys. They are very, very sensitive. You don't keep them. Okay, you deactivate your access keys. I want to deactivate this access key. I've deactivated it. Now I'm deleting it. So my access keys are deleted. All right, so that is how you function with your IAM access key. So with that, we have finished with access keys, and we have finished with I can say the second big part of AWS. We have finished with it. Right now we are entering into our major topic, which is VPC. All right, so where are we? Here we are. We have finished with everything IAM, and we have finished with this. So we are starting from our PDF 53. Okay, so we are going to begin from here in our tomorrow's sessions, which is one of the most interesting topics with AWS. It is one of the most really interesting topic. It talks about networking. VPC is all about networking, so you prepare very highly for VPC. All right, and you practice how to set up this. As I said, your CLI is going to help you so much in your CLI is going to help you so much in your Terraform code. We have one thing here that we haven't done. Okay, yeah, we are going to talk about IAM rules. I was almost about forgetting IAM rules. This is very, very important too. What are IAM rules? Come here. Now, we have AWS services. These are AWS services. We have EC2, we have Lambda, we have S3 bucket, we have maybe EKS, we have maybe SNI, we have CloudWatch. These are AWS resources, right? These are all AWS resources. Okay, in order for you to access these resources, what do you need? You need to have an AWS account. Okay, you hear like this, you need to have an AWS account. You need to, if you don't have an AWS account, you cannot have access to this. Okay, now if you have a root account, that means you are the one that paid for that account, automatically you have the full access to all these accounts or to all these services automatically. But if you are an IAM user, you need access to these accounts. Okay, this guy is root, he has all the access. The root guy has all the access. Now this guy is IAM. The IAM guy does not have all the access. He needs to be given access. Okay, this IAM guy needs to be given access. This is IAM user. Good. Now we did say that in order for this guy to have access, what should we give to him? We need to give to him what we call policies. Okay, we have to give this guy policies. He needs policies, and his policies are going to be determined by the amount of power we put to that policy. This guy needs policies, because the general question that is always asked to you is, what is the difference between policies and rules? I want to explain to you very clearly. This IAM user needs policies in order to have access to this account, to these services. The policies might be EC2, might be S3, might be Lambda, depending on what you decide. Policies can be EC2, S3, Lambda, depending. Okay, so you can have more policies, you can have little policies. So if these are EC2, S3 and Lambda, this is what will happen. We'll have maybe EC2 here, we have maybe Lambda here, S3 here, and then we'll have maybe Lambda here. What will happen? This guy here will have access, full access to all these services, full access to all these services. So policies are the rights given to you to have access to these services. Okay, cool. That is very understandable now. Where does rules fit into all these organizations? Where are rules coming in? How does rules come into this? Now, take for example, you want a situation where you are in one EC2 instance, and you want that EC2 instance to have access to an S3 bucket. Like, you want this EC2 instance, you want it to have access to this S3 bucket. You want to connect this EC2 instance to have full access to this S3 bucket. Okay, can a policy give you access to two different resources? No. So a role is actually an account that is given to a resource to have access to another resource. Okay? A role is an account that is given to a resource to have access to other resource. A role is the same like a user, but a user is assigned to a human, but a role is assigned to a resource. For example, I can decide that there is a role, this is a role here, and this role is linking what? The role is linking EC2, this role is linking EC2 to S3 bucket. There is a role. I've created a role, and then this role has a policy. This is where it becomes tricky. The role has a policy, and that policy is that the role will link EC2 to S3. So this is a role created. Where is the role created? The role is created in the person that wants access. EC2 wants access. EC2 wants access. So I'm creating a role for EC2, and then I'm telling that role that the policy that is existing is that you have access to S3. I hope I'm trying to make some clearness here. I have a role. The role is attached to EC2 instance, and in this role I am attaching a policy. This is a policy now. So policy here is giving you the right to have access to services. Policy here is giving the right for services to have access to other services. I hope that is clear. Policy with IAM user is giving IAM users the power to have access to services. But policy with role is giving services the power to have access to other services. That is the difference between roles and policies. So how do we create a role? We are going to create a role and then create a policy and then attach. We are going to create a role, create a policy, and then attach that policy to that role. Okay? We are going to create a role, create a policy, and then attach the policy to the role, and then give the role to EC2. Now, when we create this EC2, the EC2 will have access to this S3 bucket because the EC2 has this role, and the role is attached to a policy, and the policy have access to S3 bucket. I hope that is very clear. So let us try. Let's go to our I am very much trying to make this thing very clearly like this because I spent a lot of time far back when I was studying AWS. This was one of my greatest mysterious topics to understand. So that is why I am trying my best to really make it as clear as possible. So let us come to our AWS account. We go to IAM. We'll come to IAM. What are we going to see? We are going to see roles. Okay, now let us create a role. We create a role. So a role is an account given to a service. Take that. The role is an account given to a service. So if they ask you what is the difference between a role and a policy, a role is an account given to a service, while a policy is the right given to that account. That is just the difference. A role being an account given to a service, while a policy is the right given to that particular account. So we want to create a new role, create a role. So there are several types of roles that you can create. You can actually write a role using your custom policy. You can choose predefined roles, but we are going to take AWS service roles. Okay, now most often we always have our use case, which is mostly EC2 and Lambda. Okay, so let's take EC2. You come down here and you click this button down here, please. Then you take EC2. We want to create a role for EC2. So we are creating this role is a role for EC2. That means we are creating an account for EC2. That is the role. We are creating an account for EC2. That means we are creating a role for EC2. And the one who will decide on what to do with that role is next. So let us first of all create an account for EC2, which is a role for EC2. And then when we come to add permissions, now this is where we are adding the policies to that role. So we have created the account for EC2. Now we are adding the policies to that role that we have just created. And the policy is S3 access. Let's go to S3. Policy is S3, Amazon S3 full access. That is what we want, right? And then we come down to next. And then you give our role name EC2 S3 full access. Allow EC2 instance to call AWS services on your behalf. That is just our description. Yeah, we take that one by default. That is the code for what we are trying to do. And we create the role. Now this role has been created. Okay, now as a role has been created, has it automatically been given to any EC2 instance? No, it has not automatically been given to any EC2 instance. When you create your role, you have just told the role that if there is an EC2 instance, attach this role to that EC2 instance, and that role is having access to S3 bucket. Okay, what you have created is, what we have just done is we have created this structure like this structure here. That's what we have just done in what we have in all our practice that we have just done. We have just created a role, created a policy that says that EC2 should have access to S3. This is what we have created. Now, in order to use this, we will now create an EC2 instance. We are going to now create an EC2 instance, right? When we create an EC2 instance, then we are going to now link all these structures. After we create an EC2 instance, we are going to link all these. We are going to link all these to that EC2 instance, and then it will mean now that this particular EC2 instance can have access to S3 bucket. Okay, that is what we are going to do. We now create an EC2 instance which says that this EC2 instance that we are creating will link it to S3. Let's see how that works. Let's go to our EC2 instance. We have already created our role. Let's go now to our EC2 instance. All right, here is our instance. Okay, now if we run AWS S3 ls, we cannot see anything, right? AWS, they are telling us that AWS CLI is not installed and we cannot see anything here. All right, now if we come here, and we want now to link our AWS EC2 instance to our role that we have just created, we come to instance, you come to actions, you come to security, you come to modify IAM role, and then you come here, you choose IAM role, you have EC2 full access. This is the role that you just created. You take EC2 full access, you take update role. Right now this EC2 instance is having access to S3 bucket. Okay, it is having access to S3 bucket. So if we install AWS CLI now, let us install AWS CLI. Let's first of all update. And then we install AWS CLI. Our AWS CLI now has been installed. Okay, so right now it is possible for us, okay, it is possible for us to have full access to our S3 bucket. Okay, our AWS EC2 instance, can now create an S3 bucket. It can fully create an S3 bucket, it can delete an S3 bucket, it can rush data into an S3 bucket. Okay, we can now run AWS S3 ls. So we can see our bucket. We can also give it access. We can modify the role and give access to EC2 instance. Okay, if we give access to EC2 instance, the bucket will also give access to other resources like maybe Lambda. EC2 will also have access to Lambda, but EC2 and Lambda are all compute, right? So one is serverless, one is a server resource. So this is how rules and policies function. The takeaway here is that a rule, they will always ask you, I repeat, they will always ask you, what is the difference between rules and policies in AWS? Policies are rights that are given to rules. Policies are rights that are given to rules. Policies can be given to rules and policies can be given to users, but policies are rights that are given to these things. So rule is a user for a resource, while policy is a right given to a rule. Okay, that is your takeaway. Okay, so master these things well. When we come to Terraform and the way we are going to be giving rules to policies, policies to rules, and attaching them, you are going to see. So all these things that we did, we created a rule, we created a policy, we attached the rule to a policy, and then we attached the whole thing to an EC2 instance. All of it, we are going to see how we can manipulate with all that in Terraform. Okay, so I think we have gone through all our program for today. We have done IAM rules, which was the final thing for us to do today. So as I said, tomorrow we are going to be getting into VPC, and we are going to be having at least 4 classes there, and we are going to terminate everything. So guys, practice, and see you guys tomorrow.